Gluten intolerance is one of the least recognized ailments of this century. Over the past 50 years, the number of people who suffer from gluten intolerance has increased dramatically. People around you, or maybe even you, may be intolerant too. What makes it so hard is the plethora of vague complaints about this ailment that often makes it underdiagnosed. More than often than not, the complaints are not taken seriously by doctors, and when they do examine someone, they usually only test for certain reactions, while certain patients' reactions need to be measured as well. This is why millions of people suffer from all sorts of complaints that cannot be solved by lack of knowledge and awareness of gluten intolerance. This causes them to not live the life they could and should. If they were to avoid gluten, their lives would become a lot better. Gluten is a type of protein that gives dough its elasticity and stickiness. This is what gives it its many culinary applications. The food industry then made use of this fact to genetically modify grains to contain more gluten. This is very convenient for the food industry, but the high amounts of gluten these products now contain increase the permeability and sensitivity of the intestines, both large and small. This is a relatively recent discovery stemming from years of research. And this research shows that permeability of the intestines does indeed happen. This means that certain substances, including toxins, are transferred from the intestines into the bloodstream more readily and quickly, because the membranes, meaning the lining of the intestinal tract, are no longer sufficient at blocking these. Tiny holes now appear in the intestinal walls, making them no longer able to govern which substances it absorbs and which they do not. It has a negative influence to our immune system, so it is not good to your body at all. Genetically, our body was not designed to eat grains at all. This is because we lack, in whole or in part, the necessary digestive enzymes or organs to break down the long strands of protein in gluten. Thousands of years ago, we did not eat grains, but instead we ate fruits, vegetables, maritime vegetables like seaweed, nuts, seeds, red or white meat, and fish. In our evolutionary development, we've started to eat grain only recently, for the simple reason that it was easy to grow and one did not have to roam the land in search of better foods. Of course, you would never have guessed these facts when you consider that in general we seem to have a bread culture. Because your body has trouble breaking down the gluten, it ends up being undigested gluten. This can cause an enormous amount of health issues. These issues may include, but are not limited to, fatigue, anemia, aches and pains, restlessness, cramps, brittle nails, low blood pressure, feeling groggy, bloated, and even a decreased sensitivity of the taste buds. Others may be irritability, skin rashes, eye problems, vitiligo, concentration, liver or kidney problems, and even learning disabilities. In general, we have to conclude that the consequences of gluten intolerance are to be taken very seriously. It is good to know that there are several things that promote damaging the membrane of the intestines. You can avoid these. Think about antibiotics, use of sugars such as dextrose, corn syrup, fructose, glucose and cane sugar. Lectins, which are sugar proteins, contained in vegetables of the nightshade family such as tomato, potato, eggplant and bell pepper. Stress, caffeine, alcohol, refined carbohydrates, harmful bacteria, viruses and parasites, vitamin D deficiency and unhealthy food. Proof exists that everyone has a negative reaction to gluten, whether you have complaints or not. From a scientific point of view, this reaction is called immunofactor interleukin 15. This means that your body takes countermeasures against gluten and fights them without you being aware. Because our body activates this reaction every time we consume gluten, it's a good idea not to eat gluten at all for a while and see if you feel better without. Tips for this are: first of all, you can replace wheat with a gluten-free variant. In addition, check out the packaging to see if gluten is present in the products and choose an alternative if necessary. It's also good to eat healthy, vitamin-rich food. This will restore the mucous membrane in your bowels. Do not consume sugar. And finally, it's important to realize that a bread addiction often indicates a bread intolerance. When you frequently have the feeling that you absolutely must eat bread, this could very well indicate that you are bread intolerant. Take this seriously. Gluten intolerance is a frequent and modern ailment. Many people do not know they carry this ailment because they do not recognize the symptoms, or because doctors do not think of gluten intolerance because of the vague complaints. It's bad because gluten intolerance can lead to an enormous amount of health issues when you keep eating gluten unwittingly. It's not a bad idea at all to stop consuming gluten for a while and to replace it with more healthy alternatives. The odds are high that you will feel a lot better.